Hello, welcome to the Coach Trainer podcast. Hope you're all good. Hope you're having a brilliant day. We've got a super guest today, someone I'm really excited about seeing. Actually, see you live. I believe you played. I'm 99% sure at Upton Park when West Ham beat Burnley 5-3. It was a bit of a nutty game. I was in obviously the home end of the West Ham fan.
Oh, Billy, why are you triggering me like that? So, for that game, I know you've not even introduced that. Game, right? I was chair of the PFA at the time. We did this photo shoot with a graffiti artist called Seb, the Urbanist. Absolutely spectacular. This guy is just mint. But he said, do you know what, I can do a pair of boots for you if you like. And I was like, oh, go on. So I had these pair of Kings, and he graffitied like a London city outline on them, a skyline. They were spectacular. So there's me bowling up to Upton Park in these fancy shiny boots, mate. We got slapped out of the shop. Never wore those boots. I remember it vividly. I think
it was 3-0 at half time, and then it was a bit of a back and forth second half. Sorry. We don't get a lot of West Ham, so it was one of the good ones for us actually. But Clark Carlisle with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll let you kind of introduce yourself, but someone I'm really excited to talk to, Clark, because I don't know if people say this to you a lot, but you are you're an Avenger because you were the Premier League footballer. Oh. So no, listen. So
see me grow.
So for someone who grew up absolutely loving football, like to the point where it's like desperate to be a pro or whatever, and such is life, but to be around someone who then advocated mental health off the back of that so passionately, for someone like me with anxiety, stuff like that, an Avenger, Iron Man, Premier League footballer, to then talk about struggles, that's really impactful. For a human being, so just a big thank you for that, because you never really know who you're impacting, do you? So but I'll kick it over to you to introduce yourself anyway, and thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate those kind words, Billy. It's interesting before I go into that intro, because I've lived a heck of an experience, heck of a life, 46 years, but I've packed 3 lifetimes into that of experience, a lot of adversity, a lot of overcoming adversity. And I share my message, my wife and I, we share our message because we want to share it and talk about it so that other people don't have to go there. But in doing that, all you're ever doing is planting seeds. Yeah. It's not like being a teacher or being a coach where you see that seed grow, and cultivate. So you just plant seeds wherever you go. And to hear someone say that the work that we've done, that what I've said has resonated, that means a lot, mate. Yeah. That means a lot. So thank you for that. To all of you who highly likely have never heard of me, my name is Clark Carlisle. I played professional football for 17 years, 16 to 33, up and down the country, all 4 senior leagues in England. And I was chairman of the PFA in that time, and I moved on from football into broadcasting with BT Sport, with ITV, did the World Cup in Brazil, at Maracanã. It was decent, but in all of that I lived with extreme adverse mental health, a lot of addiction issues, depression, multiple suicide attempts. There's your trigger warning, and from 2017, I have deliberately worked as hard on my wellness as I did on my football. And I sit here today deliberately and unapologetically well. And we'll tell you about it.
Lovely. Sounds like an incredible journey. And again, just for somebody who is in the spotlight, Premier League footballer, like such an inspiration to so many young people, I think the message is so important. Because it's like watching your heroes and talk about, they're having struggles and stuff like that is, I think that's one of the most impactful things. And I think it's brilliant when people with a profile do talk about it, because it just helps, doesn't it? It just helps young people. It helps people who maybe think they're weird. I spent years thinking I'm weird, like having like intrusive thoughts and stuff. And then you watch people who go, people are struggling as well, and X, Y, and Z. I think that gives you a little bit of an opportunity to then go and speak out, go and speak to people, go and think I'm not the only one, X, Y, and Z. So I just think, the fact that you've used your platform to do that is brilliant, is absolutely amazing. With the football journey, I really want to touch base on like the journey, because I'm a massive football fan. Like playing at Wembley and stuff like that is incredible. Did you, like, obviously you like fell in love with the game early on and just like loved playing football. But did you notice tendencies, or do you look back and go, oh, I might have been a bit like anxious, or was it just like a trigger later on in life when mental health hit you?
No, mate, it's clear, abundantly clear to me that it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered what industry I went into. Yeah, I had the traits of someone who had set themselves up for an emotional or psychological fall, and you know, just what you're saying there, Billy. The thing is, when you've got intrusive thoughts, when you've got these emotions, you've got things going around in your head. If you don't voice them, or you don't hear someone else voice theirs, you just think it's you. Yeah. And not only that, what's the kicker in it is that you think it's normal or the norm. Yeah. You know, so you don't know any different. And if you don't know there's something to be changed, you're not going to change it. You know, and that's the key thing for people to hear, is that whatever's going on in here, we can change it. Yeah. You know, we can deliberately make our thought processes productive, constructive. We can deliberately make our responses reflective. Yeah. You know, so that we come up with a considered response rather than reaction. When we react usually in the dominant emotion or the loudest thought. It's bang off the. Whereas if you take time to step back, reflect, think about it, take on good counsel, a bit of objectivity, then you can respond to something. And you can take that in the macro, in life choices, but you can also boil that right down to in the moment. Yeah. And that's what I've learned. So to answer your question, you know, football meant so much to me, not because of the game, which I did love. It meant so much to me because of what it meant between me and my dad. I rarely saw my dad, right? You know, I say rarely saw him, lived at home with him, but because it was the 70s, 80s, he's a black guy in Preston, he can't get a job and all the rest of it, you know, he locked himself in his room, you know, he's smoking weed, he's self-medicating, but I didn't see that. What I saw was I had to do things to spend time with Dad. Yeah. And I used to go and watch him play football. He wanted to be a professional, but injury and racism, you know, stopped him from getting there. I know people use that quite lightly. My dad had England trials, right? Had an England 90-minute trial, how it was back in the day. The team won 2-0. He scored both, absolutely destroyed the opposition. Come off at the end, and the coaches say, "Oh, he's not the type of player we're looking for." You know, that's indicative of the time, and the coaches were the coaches of the players who were trialling, absolutely outraged. But anyhow, that's another story. But my dad plays Saturday Sunday League. I used to go and watch him on the sidelines, cheering him on. And then when I started to play at 12, my dad and my granddad came to every game I played. So more than just being a game that I loved, this was quality time with my dad. Yeah. This was me looking for a dream that might realise both of our dreams. Yeah. You know, so that's why football was hugely important to me. And then to talk about the behaviours that underpinned it, that interaction with my dad, it made me believe that attention and affection was earned. You had to do something. And then you couple that with growing up on a Northern Council estate, you know, a handful of non-white people on that council estate, going into school, a handful of non-white people in that school. I didn't make friends, I earned them. Yeah. I had to go out and do something, you know, so that you would spend time with me. Yeah. And that's all in around people going, "Oh, look at your hair, isn't it funny what happens when it gets wet?" You know, you just feel different, so I've got to prove myself to you. Yeah. And all of that led to a young boy who had no self-identity. I had no identity because I would be whatever you needed when I saw you. And then when I saw you around the corner, Angelo, I'd be whatever you needed. And then when I saw the teacher, I'd be whatever they needed. And then when I went home to Dad, I'd be whatever he needed, you know. So I never knew myself. I was whatever everyone else needed. And it depended on what you thought of me. That dictated what I thought of myself. Yeah. So all of that external validation, that people pleasing, desperate for love and affection, not attention, love and affection. That meant to me, looking back, it didn't matter whatever career I went into, mate. You know, that was the basis from which I got my validation. So you take that over the era that it was when social media comes out in the middle of my football career. Can you imagine? Well, you don't need to imagine. When it came out, we would get messages in real time.
Yeah.
I'd come off a game and I'd have hundreds of messages saying, you're shy.
Yeah.
or saying I'm good.
Yeah.
Let's say I got 91 saying, you had a great game. But the one that said I had a bad game, mate, that's straight into here.
Yeah.
And now that person becomes my sole focus for the next 8 days. I'm trying to convince him, oh, no, you know, I'm a good guy. I've played well before and all this. So it doesn't matter what job I'd have been in. That dynamic would have prevailed, and I would never have had a knowledge of who I am, or being confident or comfortable in just being me.
Yeah.
So those behaviours were there early, mate.
It's really interesting because you often talk about like conditioning a lot. So just like conditioning your brain to be able to cope with certain situations, like stress moments, X, Y, and Z. And you've obviously come out of that situation with also unbelievable conditioning in certain aspects. So like resilience, watched you play, like to be a Premier League centre half, to be a professional footballer isn't easy. You've got to have unbelievable amounts of resilience. You've got to be hardworking. You've got to put the graft in to get the rewards off the back of it. So it's interesting. So especially like with the conversation at the moment around like young men and like being hard workers, X, Y, and Z. But it's just don't push your feelings aside. You can still be that person. You can still be that hard-working, conditioned person, but be okay to be vulnerable as well at the same time. Is just like an important message from me, because ultimately, like, I'm presuming that your upbringing also is a lot to do with the successes of what you've done as well, and how hard you've worked in those moments. But it's just obviously being vulnerable at that stage, which I guess you see growing up as a man. I guess it wasn't the normal to be outspoken, vulnerable, to say, like, we're struggling here, or I don't feel great here, X, Y, and Z. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, I'm painting a spidergram off where you've gone there, because there's 3 different points that are really important, and I've already forgotten one. But the conditioning is huge. If we are not aware that we are being conditioned every single day, then you know we're in trouble.
Yeah,
because if you're not conscious of what is conditioning you, then it's just arbitrary. It's utterly arbitrary. And when I was growing up, the 2 aspects that affect us all are generational conditioning and societal conditioning. And growing up in the 80s, early 90s, the generational conditioning from my old man, like I said, 6'5" black guy in the north of England. Everything about his life was adversity.
Yeah.
He had to be prepared to fight people to walk down the street with my white mum. So what he showed to me and what he verbally told us was, back straight, head down, crack on, you deal with your business. You don't talk about your business. That was his direct conditioning to me. And what we need to be more aware of is conditioning, especially generational. It's not just what you say, it's more what you do.
Yeah.
Kids model behaviour more than they do follow direction, verbal direction. So that's what he showed me what it was to be a man, what masculinity is, a very traditional view. And then that's compounded by everything that I see. The societal conditioning of that era is the same. I mean, pick a movie, Rocky Balboa, the doctor says, don't do it, Rock. His wife says, don't do it, Rock. But he's like, Adrian, and then he goes and fights an absolute monster, wins, and that's the champion. That's a man. Yeah. Does that make sense? So that's in me. That's what it is to be a man. And this, I've remembered the second point. So where that moves to is the second point you were talking about is about being able to show vulnerability and acknowledge that different aspects. Now, in the era that I grew up, it wasn't a thing. In fact, you do not do it.
Yeah.
You actively suppress emotion. You don't show weakness. You don't show negative emotions. No such thing as a negative emotion. It's just how we process it that can have negative outcomes. So, I don't do all of that malarkey is wrapped up in there. But what we know and understand now today is that we have to process these things.
Yeah.
You know, we have to have spaces where we can think about, talk about, delve into, deconstruct, and you know, develop a response to all of the life's events and our feelings. So when you try and marry that with professional football or elite sport or anything, you know, high achieving, or let's say the armed forces, stuff like that, very similar mindsets. It's not about me being this avenger, and that's me. It's about understanding when I'm in my football zone, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
But when I'm being Clarke, I need a totally different approach. You know, and we need to start developing our children and young people to understand their whole self.
Yeah.
You'll never hear me say that tunnel vision, that singular approach, that drive to beat the odds and win at all costs. You'll never hear me say it's a bad thing, because in some careers it is absolutely paramount importance that you have that in your career mind. That's one part of who you are. When you apply those traits to wider life, that's when they become destructive. That's when you destroy yourself from the inside and your relationships and those responses. So I now know that, you know, to be Clarke the footballer, I had to be like that. I had to be singular. I had to be driven. But when I come out and I try and be Clarke the brother, Clarke the son, Clarke the Holy Ghost, you know, there are many different traits. That's when I have to be more receptive, more verbal, more sharing of who I am. And the third point's long gone.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you. Like, who is Clarke then?
Who is Clark Carlisle? Today, Clark Carlisle is a well man. I am a devoted and loving husband and father and son, and my core values are in giving, in service, in compassion, and in authenticity.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing.
How important are those people around you that you've just mentioned, being a son, being a husband? Because I look at my life and like my growing up, I was exactly the same. It's like football was if I got signed by a club, if I got a scholar, if I ended up being a pro, that would have been like, oh, I've proven to my dad, like, because it meant so much to him. And then when that didn't happen, I kind of drunk a bit too much for a few years and X, Y, and Z. But my wife is like my rock, like my God, like to be on, like just tell her exactly how I feel all the time. No judgment back from her. She's just like my absolute rock. And then being a dad now is like so brilliant. And then having a business partner who I love so much and want to make proud. Like these people are like so important for me to continue. Like are those people, have they like been really helpful for you, like family around you? Have you found great comfort in that as well, in doing what you're doing?
Just hugely so. But there are important distinctions to be made. I wouldn't be as well as I am, and it wouldn't have happened as quick as it did without my wife and my family. That is a fundamental truth. If I wanted to get well for my wife and my family, it wouldn't happen. You know, it took a lot of discussion to get this point to settle. You know, with my wife, if you're going to get well and you're going to be the best version of you, you have to do it for you.
Yeah.
If you've got any other driver, then you're not anchored. You know, because any other driver, you know, I'm not sure how to articulate this. If you're leaning on something else, then you're not in control of your pathway. Whereas if it's anchored in me, I want to be the best version of me today. Yeah. Then, it's all down to me. I'm looking at myself in the mirror at the end of the day. And the byproduct of that is that I can then be the best version of myself to all of these people around me. Now, those people around me, oh gosh, mate, they were incredibly important parts of my wellness, because For the way that, talking about conditioning, the way that I was brought up, I thought that everything had to be earned.
Yeah.
And the way that was intertwined with football made me feel like if I had a good game, I was a good human, and I was allowed to smile, and I'll go and play with the kids, and I'll go and be in around the community. If I had a bad game, then I was a terrible human, and I would hide away, and I'm not allowed to play with my kids, or I'm not allowed to go for a meal. So the flip side of that is when I'm well, I know that I can be every version of me at any given time. It's not dependent on something. And that then allows me to be the best father, to be the best husband, because my priorities are right. I'm doing things for the right reason, and usually with the right outcomes. It's a difficult one to articulate that, but my family are fundamentally important to my wellness, and my wife, she's the most incredible human on the planet. Honestly, she's my human. And sometimes I don't like to go into this because I'm very conscious of the fact that not everyone has that. Not everyone has a family around them. Not everyone has that solid partner. So I don't want to say, oh, it's all because of, because that might make someone who hasn't got it feel like they've got no chance. You have got that chance when you do it for you. That being said, when you're doing it in tandem with someone else who's supporting you, but also going on their learning and growth journey alongside you, it's a powerful thing, mate. Truly powerful thing. I
think the message for me from that is, you still want to come back to like self-accountability, don't you? You don't almost put it on other people to be like, well, I'm happy because of you make me happy. It's like I want to be happy within myself already. I want to get to that point of happiness as such. And it's we talk about self-accountability a lot, don't we? In business, in everything that we do. I like to be responsible for me, and I like outcomes to be driven by me, not by dependency on others.
That codependency.
I like to be almost
the driver.
Like,
You've got to be the driver in that.
Absolutely.
Get the support from the people around you, of course, but actually, like you said, do it for yourself. We've done social media posts recently where we're trying to encourage people to don't just do it for the people around you. We've got all this talking going on all the time from externals and a lot of internals as well, but actually doing it for yourself. I think that's so important. And a question I was going to ask is, when you're talking about wellness, you talk of it as a state of being.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that something that is now? Is it something that you have to continue working on consistently, or is it something that you've done the work on and now that will carry over into the rest of your life? How does that state look for you? Is it something you have to keep?
It is something that I address consistently. That being said, just like every other thing that we do, every other behaviour, because I have done it so consistently now, constructive and productive actions and choices are now my auto response. So the good, positive action or reaction is now my first choice, rather than me having to address it and undo this, that and the other. So I love talking about wellness, because a lot of people get confused between wellness and happiness. That happiness is a transient emotion. It comes and goes, and if your goal is happiness, you're going to set yourself up for large periods of life where you're without it. And so if that's your goal, you're less than, or you're failing, or however you want to put it. If you strive for wellness, then that means that you're present to enjoy the happiness, but equally you're present to manage any other emotion that comes your way in a constructive way. Me being well today doesn't mean that life's easy. We've got significant challenges in our family, in our life, and we meet them. We meet them every day. I turn up every day, and I'm present to make not reactive choices, but reflective responses, where I take good counsel. And so, with this being a physical activity based podcast, I think this is a really good analogy, because mental health and well-being, we've got this kind of dichotomy in English society where you're either unwell or you're well, and it's not true. You know, overlay the physical the physical life of an athlete on your mental health, and it'll become clearer. Because the way that we currently do it, pretty much like we do with our physical health in the medical sense, we wait until something goes wrong. We'll go to the hospital, they'll patch us up, and then they spit us out, you know. And we do the same with mental health. We wait till something goes wrong, we go and get some support, they patch us up, and they hoy us out, and we think the job's done. But it's not. I had a massive knee injury when I was 21. I was out for 22 months. And I go in, I have an operation, and the surgeon fixes my knee, right? So when he spits me out, I'm not match fit. He's just dealt with the injury. Yeah. You know, so from there, I have to now engage in a whole different set of activities to go from injured to fit. Yeah. And I do that. And then once I'm fit, I engage in a different set of activities to maintain that fitness. Yeah. And that's like our mental health. If you're unwell, if you're in ill health, you do one set of things to make you stable. And then when you get to stability, you have to do a different set of things to get you well. Yeah. And then when you're well, you do a different set of things to maintain that wellness. And at each point, there might be a little bit of crossover. I might do one or two things, you know, that I had to do in the physio hut, but probably not as much because I'm fit now. But I do need to do a couple of different things to kind of maintain that fitness. And that's that's the approach we need to take with our mental health. Where are you right now? Are you in ill health? Because if you are, you need to go and get specific support. Yeah. Are you stable? Because if you are, it'll probably only take a nominal life event to knock you into instability. Yeah. So if you're stable, have a look at that and do what it takes to get you well. And if you're well, understand what it is that keeps you well. Yeah. So a classic example of this was, you know, there are a lot of people who are accidentally well. And they got found out in COVID. You know, the people say, oh, you know, mental health's not a thing. You know, I've dealt with stress for the last 30 years, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden we go into COVID, we go into lockdown, and people are like, oh my gosh, you know, what's happened? Yeah. Well, what is it that made you well? A lot of guys say, oh, I play golf. Golf makes me well. Now, but why does golf make you well? Break it down. Yeah. So let's have a look at it. You've got 4 hours in the fresh air. You've got 4 hours where you turn your phone off. You've got a 4-hour walk and talk with 2 or 3 other people. You've probably got maybe a wider social at the end, you know, the 19th in the clubhouse. You're practicing a skill. You've got an element of competition. You know, all of these things, these are the things are why golf makes you well. Yeah. So if there comes some kind of situation where you can't play golf anymore, maybe injury or a pandemic, you know what it is about golf that keeps you well. Yeah. So you can start to piece it together. You'll be like, right, so I need to turn my phone off for a certain amount of time a day. I'm going to do that every Tuesday. I need to go for a walk. I'm going to do that on a Friday. I need something where I'm practicing a skill, so maybe I might try and do this. So if you've got something that you know is what underpins your wellness, break it down. Yeah. Yeah. Because if there ever comes a time when you're without it, you can piece it together in constituent parts around and about and diarise it so that you're deliberately maintaining your wellness. That's amazing. And actually you've broken that down and articulated that really well. And it makes me think as leaders of our business, we have, you know, 200 plus coaches, we've got 30 franchisees, mainly men. As the business leaders, what can we do to support those guys to basically articulate what you just did? You know, how can we kind of get into them to help understand that? Because I still think now, I don't know what you think, there's still a taboo where people, like you said, accidental wellness. Yes. I think that's a really, really good way of putting that. And how do you actually kind of get into those people who, oh, I'm fine, like I'm just fine? How do you kind of help them understand or encourage that kind of
discussion.
To touch on that, giving you a perfect example, in our head office, in our office daily, we've got about 12 people. We it's a nice office, but not a lot of sunlight gets in, and we try and encourage our team to get away from their screens every day and just go for a walk outside. No one does it. Like, no, they don't do that. They just sit at their screen and they look at the screen, and we're like, no, get out for 20 minutes. This can wait, and be in the fresh air. I think the point you've made previously is like, some people have to get to a point where the pain is too much, then they take action. It's like the pain's got to come in. If they're not feeling the pain.
So how do we encourage that out of them? Yeah. You know, to move them forward or to help them.
Bringing in initiatives like that is wonderful. You're putting yourself as a considerate employer, aren't you? You know, and that, especially if you're evidencing it yourself as leaders, which is fundamentally important. Anything that you bring in as this is what we do for our wellness, this is, you know, our employee support. If you're not evidencing usage, your staff aren't going to engage in it. A classic, you'll be sick of the football analogies.
No, I love it.
You know, if I'm playing for Sam Allardyce, like I was as a young man, I'm not going to play beautiful Pep Guardiola football out of the back as a centre half, not because I don't like it, but because I know he doesn't like it. Yeah. I'm going to do whatever he wants me to do, and whatever he mimics, whatever he evidences. That I'm going to do that because that I think is my best way to progression. So even in this scenario, you might put nice things in and on around the workplace, but if as leaders you're not evidencing usage, your staff are going to revert to what they think you want them to produce as an employee. So that's to that point. But to come to your point, Angelo, you can't. No, there is no individual that can be deliberately well unless they know themselves. You need to know not just what it is that you do in your daily life, what you do in your actions and responses, how you're thinking. You have to know why. It's understanding that your values, beliefs and motivations that underpin all your responses. So let me think of an example. I just can't think of one now. I'm just looking at that. I'm thinking that soundproofing's nice. Sometimes you cut into my head. It's like Homer Simpson. I look all pensive. I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder if I'm going to have chocolate fudge cake.
But it's a tough question, isn't it? You know, it's a tough one. You know, I think I just love the way you explained it. You know, it's like accidental wellness. I think that's a real key.
Well, for me, it's almost like going into business. It's like success principles. It's like we often do this in business. It's like, okay, what are the things that are going to make us successful and make us get thousands of children active, sell more franchises, increase turnover? And it's like, it's normally 4 or 5 principles that we've got to buy into. Then we've got to points where we've had targets and we've got to them. And it's like, well, these principles won't get us to the next stage anymore. We maybe need to do things slightly differently. But actually the principles around wellness, I'm presuming are pretty constant for people. It's, well, what are the triggers that make you feel bad, and also what are the triggers that make you feel really good, and understanding them to the best of your ability. I think one big driver of that, and something that you're doing incredibly well, Clark, is coming back to your point about your dad. I remember going around my friend's house when I was about 11 and going home and going to my mum, he's so weird, his dad. And mum was like, why is his dad weird? And by the way, I love my dad, my best mate in the world. And mum was like, why is his dad weird? Because he talks all the time. Because my dad didn't talk at home. Like, no, genuinely, like my dad was, and my perception of a man was, you kind of get home, you don't really talk, like you're a bit like, he's the most loving man in the world, but that's kind of what he was like. But I think actually for a lot of young men, especially in our workforce, it's actually giving them the opportunity to talk about, I don't feel great today, or rather than just constantly soldiering on, just giving people license to feel vulnerable. And the best way to do that is by leading by example and spreading vulnerability. Like, I get to a point now, it's like I've broke my dad down. I walk every time around there. Let's get the dogs out. Let's get the leads on them, and we walk, and it's like I'll get him talking. Because it's almost like role reversal if I'm vulnerable, hopefully it gives you the opportunity to feel safe in that zone as well. I don't know, that could be something that could work for young men.
Definitely, it could work with everyone in being proactive in that, in creating, you know, your counsel around you, in just like I said, that example, in evidencing what it is that you want in return. You know, sometimes people want to speak, but they don't feel like they've got permission. They're scared of how it'll be received. You know, they might think the kid's going to go home and say their dad's a weirdo. you know, it's often it's a fear of perception and response. Yeah. You know, and I think we're way beyond that. We speak to children, young people nowadays. They've got an emotional literacy, but also an expectancy, an expectation about how that should be received and handled. And I think we're kind of the blocker, because we grew up with one generation of conditioning, but we've been taught a new way of how. So we've got to undo that thinking, learn what new is, and then do new. Yeah, you know, and that takes time. So to go back to that point of what can people do, you need to know yourself. Yeah. You need to understand how and why you act and react in certain situations. And the way that I did that was by spending time at the end of every day reflecting. Every day. Yeah. And now it's part of my non-negotiables of wellness. In the morning, I have half an hour where I have a brew, I'll read my Bible, say some prayers. In the evening, I have half an hour, Classic FM, I smoke a pipe and I reflect. And in both of those times, my children and my wife aren't allowed to intervene, and they know this unless it's an emergency. First is me setting myself up for the day. I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be present. You know, I know the end of the day is me reflecting on what happened through that day. And here's a really good starter for 10 to start to try to understand yourself in a day. If I feel any spikes in emotion in the day, no matter what the emotion is, I'll clock it. And at the end of the day, I'll look back and I'll think, right, I got spiked in that conversation, right? Was the emotion that I felt, was it appropriate to what was going on? And then second of all, was the depth of the emotion that I felt, was it proportionate to what happened? So let's say I knock this drink over now, and I'm annoyed, I'm angry. I'm like, right, should I have been angry? Well, yeah, it's really inconvenient, to knock that over. So that's okay. It's a good emotion and a little bit of annoyance that's appropriate. However, if I knock that off and then I'm like, oh my God, Clark, that's why no one speaks to you. You're an absolute failure. Yeah. So I'll reflect, right. I felt anger and annoyance, that's probably appropriate, but the depth of that response in no way reflected me knocking a drink over. So I know that there was probably something else feeding that outburst. Yeah. The classic example, and I think that most people get with this, is road rage. Yeah. And this is actually a little bit of intersectionality. Do you know, we talk ourselves into emotional responses sometimes. Unless you're thinking about it, you're not thinking about it. You're driving down the road, you see someone about to pull out, you think, if they pull out there, I'm going to be absolutely livid. Yeah. So what happens? They pull out. What happens? I'm absolutely livid. Yeah. We talk ourselves into an emotional response, whereas what I had to do was learn a disruptor. So that would happen. If they pull out there, I'll be absolutely livid. And then I was like, all right, I introduced the word or. And then at first I had to offer myself just an alternative, whether I believed it or not. If they pull out there, I'll be absolutely livid, or I'll be mildly inconvenienced.
Brilliant.
Mate, I can't tell you how many times in a day I am mildly inconvenienced. Yeah. And you retain a much calmer state. Yeah. It makes you not forgiving, that's not just you're more tolerant, you're more compassionate, you're more patient. Understand what you're telling yourself, understand what you're talking yourself into, and understand the depth and name of emotion that you're feeling in any time in a day. And I felt that for a man who'd suppressed emotions for decades, it really helped me identify the emotions that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, you know, all I'd know is that I've got a knot in my stomach, but I'm going to lock it down. I'm going to go and have a pint. I'm going to punch that. I'm going to, you know, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So going through that process over a period of time helped me identify emotions, and then it helped me identify like my responses to certain situations. Here's another one. I'm going off here.
No, I love it. Please love it.
Yeah.
Here's another one. I realised when I started doing this that when I felt angry, I would either want to cry or cry. And it took me a long time to work it out. I was like, wow, that's weird. You know, I was like, I really wanted to cry then, but why? I was like, oh, because I felt really angry. And I didn't understand the connection. And the connection was, it was as a child, you know, parenting in the 80s, my old man was like, hey, Mum, don't talk about our business.
Yeah.
You know, so my associations with anger were with me old man and parental discipline.
Yeah.
And so as I've come into adulthood and become a man, subconsciously I've been determined not to replicate that behaviour. And when I felt it rising, because I know I don't want to do it, because I know what it meant to me, I'm like, oh, and I cried.
Yeah.
You know, so again, this is another moment. A lot of our coping structures, we developed them when we were kids. But if we haven't taken the time to have a look and see if they're still working for us as a man, something will happen, and it's 8-year-old Clarke reacting.
Yeah.
Not 46-year-old Clarke. Does that make
no,
sense to you? You know,
absolutely.
so now I can feel anger without feeling or the need to or crying. And I've developed a different coping mechanism.
They should
with
be
it.
teaching these things in schools, right?
Like, emotional literacy, definitely.
They should be teaching this and self-awareness and everything you're talking about there, and those strategies that you do each day, those non-negotiables. Do you have any other non-negotiables that you do each day which support your well-being?
Sleep.
Good sleep.
My sleep is non-negotiable.
How many hours is it on hours?
I'm an 8-hour guy. It's a big thing for me because when for 12 years I had undiagnosed depression, and in most intense depressive episodes, I had hypersomnia, so I could sleep for 30, 40 hours straight. You know, I'm just in my pit, like quite literally cannot get out of bed, can't open my eyes to even engage with my family, let alone the world. So sleep was, it had a bit of fear connected to it. Yeah. You know, even though I knew it was important, if I slept for 11 hours, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I depressed? Yeah. You know, sometimes a spade is just a spade. Yeah. Sometimes, Clark, you're just knackered. You know, but understanding that, I could get myself into a cycle. Equally, if there's a night where I can only have 5 hours sleep, I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's only 5 hours sleep. It's like, no, it's okay. That's practically all you can get today. Yeah. So let's make sure we plan for the rest of the week or whatever it is that you get your good sleep. And in my job now, I'm business development executive at Bet No More. We're a gambling harms charity. Hopefully we'll talk about that later, but I'm all over the place. Like this morning, you know, the 6 o'clock train from Newcastle means my alarm's going off at quarter to 5, you know. So last night, my wife and I were in bed at 8. And we put something on the telly, fall asleep during that. You know, it takes discipline. Yeah. It really does. As a man, it takes discipline, because when you've got these multiple roles, it can very easily progress to the point where you think, I'm doing that for work, I'm doing that for my partner, I'm doing that for the kids, I'm doing this for them. I'm just like, oh, you know, get everyone in bed. This is just a bit of me time, you know. And then historically for me, when I was poorly, that me time had been me gambling on my phone, it'd been me having pints of beer, it'd been me staying up while all hours. And before you know it, you've gone 4, 5, 6, 7 days. You've only had 10 hours sleep. Yeah. But it's all because I need my quality time. Like, well, is it quality? It is my time, but is it constructive and productive? You know, so being disciplined about saying, right, I have to go to bed at 8 tonight because I'm up at 4, 5. But what I'll do is on Sunday, I'm taking the girls to ballet in the morning, and then we've got this for lunch. 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock, that's my time on Sunday. And I'm going to put it in the diary. I'm going to let my wife know and say, oh, that's a bit of me time. I'm going to go and do this. What that means is, during the week when I've got to be disciplined, and I might be missing out on match of the day, I might be missing out on a live game, you know, I know in my head that I've got that time for me coming at the end of the week. And that compartmentalization that we can do as humans is incredible. Utterly incredible. Leads me on to another point. Billy Angelo, you're going to be sick of me.
No, I love it, Clark.
Compartmentalization is an amazing human trait. It's such a powerful tool for us to use, really useful. It's only positive if we then go back to that compartment and deal with what we put in there.
Yeah.
You know, because I often hear this, and I don't know where you guys will sit on this. Do you remember that whole drive for, oh, bring your whole self to work? You know, like, oh, you just this, that, and the other. Yeah, you know, it's absolute tosh. Work is a professional environment.
Yeah.
You know, we have a job to do.
Yeah.
And there's a manner in which we do it. So be authentic at work, yes. Be professional at work and get that done. If something happens during a working day and then you can put it in that box.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as you go back to that box at the right time,
And deal with it.
take it out and have a look at what it was.
Yeah.
You know, and then you discuss, well, actually, this comes from that. I need to talk to my therapist. This stems from what happened with my wife last night. We need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, So, yeah, stick things in the box, but that box has a finite capacity.
Yeah.
Make sure you go and empty it.
What I really like about that is that you spoke about that wellness non-negotiables, things that are non-negotiable for you to be well as a person, and other people can buy into things that make them well. But actually, you're underpinning everything you've done with principles that make you successful at doing that thing. So you've mentioned discipline. So if you want to be well, you need to be disciplined around sleep, around other things in your life. If you want to be a Premier League footballer, at times you need to be disciplined and probably sacrifice to be an incredible Premier League footballer. But ultimately, discipline is something that's required to meet whatever goal that is. There are certain principles that you're mentioning that you have to buy into. Ultimately, like professionalism. Well, I completely agree. I'm so passionate about like meeting my commitments. I'm really, really passionate about it. If I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my best to do it. If I'm having a moment or struggling, absolutely. In myself, my core values around I want to show up to people. I want to be someone who's a man of their word, effectively. But that doesn't mean mask it forever. It means show up and then come back to the thing later on. Meet my core value. That's a success principle for me. But then maybe later that day after I've shown up and I've got through it, be proud of myself. You've done that. You were struggling. Now let's deal with that bit of vulnerability you've got there. That's what's super important.
100%, mate. You hit the nail on the head there. Because you know that people pleasing that I did. I had a mask for everyone, a different one, and because they were all interchangeable, I never knew who I was. You know, I felt fraudulent. It's not being fraudulent, you know. If I am wearing a mask now for you guys, and then I go home and wear a different mask for my wife, and then I'm not going to speak to King Charles the same way I speak to my daughter. And that's not masking in a detrimental way. That's being appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to speak to my friends different to that. I'm going to speak to my brother different to that. So these different personas that we put on, they're presenting the appropriate version of myself for that situation. And I can still be authentic in that. So when it comes to the professional environment, if you've got your professional mask on and you're dealing with a scenario, but there's something going on underneath, it's okay to keep that mask on as long as, just like you said, where you have your safe space to take it off and deal with what was going on behind there. And this is something that I have had to be disciplined about and introduce into my life, because I was a yes man. I said yes to everyone. I will be professional, I am professional, and I prioritise myself. I prioritise me first. If I am good, it's only then that I can be all the things that I need to be for everyone else. Whereas if I'm being everything that I need to be for everyone else, and I am feeling bad, all it'll do is that I'll not be able to fulfill those roles, and I'm doing a disservice to myself and everyone else. So, prioritizing self is, again, it's a non-negotiable, and it's something that has to be learned, and you have to be disciplined about. Like today, I had a hell of a week last week, and let's say it was too much, I would have had no qualms at postponing this morning. Right? But because I look after myself, I know that, I can do this again today. And I've got 4 days working from home now. Yeah. And I know that at certain junctures, I'm going to do certain things where I'm going to be able to fill my cup so I can go again. And one of those was the one I mentioned earlier. I know taking 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening, an hour in a day. If I take that hour for me, I can give 15 hours to everyone else. Yeah. And that still leaves 8 hours for sleep.
What you said about, no, totally right. And what you said about like potentially postponing, I couldn't agree anymore, but you'll deal with it professionally and you'll be disciplined in the way that you deal with it. So
of course,
we had
100%.
We had a videographer who was going to do some work for us a few months ago, and he didn't turn up to a meeting. And we're quite hot on, like, we really want professionalism. And he was very vulnerable and honest about the moment in his life that was going on, to a point where, like, I was just like, that is, like, thank you for postponing and putting yourself first. We will certainly look to reach out and work again, like, no problem. Whereas if it was just like, I couldn't make it in the end, it's like, you've not dealt with that professionally, there's no honesty, there's no vulnerability. To me, that's really important. If someone's going to postpone X, Y, and Z, absolutely fine. But yeah, you're totally right. Take that, be that professional approach with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Just circling back around to football and being like a young YTS scholar, trying to go through the system. Yeah. How, like, I want to hear about all the brilliant things and the moments that football gives you, debuts, X, Y, and Z. But, like, I don't know, was the word like busy a word that was involved? Because I know it definitely was when I was a young lad playing football, and it was like, you're busy, you're X, Y, and Z. And it was just like, even if, like, trying to talk or open up with people in the changing room was, like, perceived as busy. And you are, like, I don't know why you're like it. Anjo is like the most positive man on the planet, to a point where he's just like so kind, positive, lovely person. If you was in a football change room with me at 18 years old, you would have just been called busy as a person. And it was like, but it's just like, why is that the case?
So, just to confirm, that's a bad thing, right?
No, it was, for me, it was like almost, everyone talks about football being like this team sport, but ultimately you are fighting against those people daily for positions. So as much as you are like in a team, you are on your own as well a little bit, because you're like, well, there's 4 lads here in my position, and I want to start on the weekend. So how was it hard to, do you feel like professional football made it hard for you to get there quicker with this wellness, because of like the environment that it created? And I'm guessing that it's probably got much better now. Like, I don't know if your experience, do you feel it's got better? I don't know.
Well, two very, very different questions, but you've hit the nail on the head. That's an insight that not a lot of people have, Billy. They're like, oh, you're there, you've got 40 mates in that, you're just messing about like a school playground, which to an extent it is. But these 40 people are my first competitors. Yes. Only 11 can start on a Saturday, only 2 as a centre half in my position, and I can only take one of them position because my left leg's for standing on. Let me tell you. Oh wow, it's like my left foot's got bunions. So you know, they are teammates, but they are direct competitors, and with one person picking the team, it's essential that I show to that one person that I'm more reliable than this guy, that I'm more consistent than this guy, I'm nicer than this guy, you like me better. So you think of that as an environment. It was perfect for me. It was perfect because my core value was anchored in me doing and being everything you needed me to be. Yeah. So, yeah, you're damn right. I was busy. I was the busiest I was head YT. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. You know, and all my mates called me busy, but and what that meant was that I then had to put on a different mask for them to win them over.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do I do to win them over? Well, if I have to be professional and busy there, what are they going to like? Well, they're going to like that mischievous aspect.
Yeah.
They're going to like the bit that's away from the football club. So I was the biggest drinker.
Yeah.
I was a big joker. I was, first out, last in when it came to nights out, so I started to wear that mantle for them. So it compounded it massively.
Yeah.
It compounded my inability to address anything that was going on, in here, because I needed to make sure that I was the perfect version of Clarke for you, then you, then you, and then you, and then you. And there was no way for me to delve into that. Has it changed? Has football changed? Or the environment that...
Because it's just like I've watched. I've been in the dressing room at YTS, and it was like it's done wonders for me in business. Like, it hardened me as an individual. But I look back and I think, like, bloody hell, like, I don't know if everyone like survives that and comes out. And I think it's definitely affected like my mental health, anxiety, and stuff like that. Like just being so fixated of like, if I start on a Saturday, that's success for me. If I don't, I'm not a successful human being. Like, I'm just not. But the competition and the edge and the drive has really kind of taken me into adult life better, and like helped me with business, and just trying to pick and choose what are the good and what wasn't the good. But then I watched like what was it? It's like All or Nothing on Amazon with like Arsenal and Arteta, and they're like lighting up, they're holding hands and lighting up a light bulb in the middle, and I'm like, if we done that in our like, it's mental. I'm like, that would never happen. So, but it feels like when I watch sport now, it's like it is more positive, and they care more about keeping players feeling positive rather than if you're not playing, you're not needed. So, and I guess, I don't know, that's how it feels to me from an outside perspective. Yeah.
There's a more considered approach, definitely. That being said, it is a cutthroat industry.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 0.01%. Yeah. It still grinds me now when people say, they're lucky to play football. You were lucky to play football. No danger. It's not just about having the talent. It's the commitment, dedication to your skill and your vocation that will get you there. And to maintain it is a whole nother thing. And so the environment has to kind of reflect that in some way.
Yeah,
it is going to be brutal.
Yeah,
because we can't make it fluffy for everyone.
Yeah.
And nor should the workplace be fluffy. I really don't like that whole trope again, like I said, about you bring your whole self to work and we need to make sure that that's nice and that's nice. Look, you create a nice environment, yes. There are still rigours of work that need to be met. So it's not about dumbing down the workplace to be nice for everyone. It's about building up the humans so that they've got the capacity to manage the workplace and the rigours of work. So in football, that comes by adjusting the whole academy mechanism, and the way that we develop these young boys and girls with an understanding of their whole self. Because what you've just hit on there, Billy, was the story of my life, and there's still a legacy of it now today, in the magnitude of the job and its inextricable connection to my self-worth. It puts you on a roller coaster, a massive roller coaster. But not only that, on a timeline that people will never understand if you've never been in elite team sport, because it's not just Saturday, Tuesday that defines you. It's also that skill session and then that 6v6 where I had a bib on, but then in the next one I was on that side. Yeah. There are little bits every day where the success and the failure, psychologically and internally, they're huge, and they are like up and down, because things that in football especially, actions and consequences are instantaneous. You know, if I have a shocker there on a Saturday, I am out of the side. Yeah, I'm out of the side. I'm not getting a contract. I'm probably not getting a transfer. I'm not paying my bills. It's boom, 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 boom. My agent calls me, you're getting a move. It's not like, oh, well, let's develop this relationship and we'll give you a business proposal. It's bang, Clark.
Yeah.
I turned up for a match at Vicarage Road playing for Watford. I was captain. Walking in for this League Cup game, and the manager, Adi Boothroyd, met me at the players' entrance, said, Clark, I've sold you to Burnley. I was like, okay. Went to walk past him, said, where are you going? I was like, I've got a game in 2 hours. He said, no, I've sold you to Burnley. Oh, you need to go. I walked in for a game, got to the players' entrance, told I was sold, in my car, drove up to Burnley, and before that game had finished, I was a Burnley player. Rang my wife and said, we're moving to Burnley. She said, when? I said, I'm here now. You can come in the morning.
Wow.
I turned up to my first day of Burnley training in a Watford tracksuit.
Yeah, that is mental.
So that's the instantaneous nature of that industry. So when you come out into Civvy Street, for want of a better word, and you know, you have a meeting with someone, like, that's a great idea, like, brilliant, right, yeah, let's work together on this. And then a day goes by, and then 4 days go by, and then 2 weeks go by. And I'm like, do you still want to do this? Oh, yeah, we'd love to do that. We'll get back to you short. I'm like, where's the urgency? Yeah. Where's the instantaneous, aspect of it? When I send a, proposal or a spreadsheet into my boss or my colleagues, and they're like, thanks for that. I'm like, what do you mean, thanks for that? How good was it?
Tell me right now.
Grade me.
Or tell me I'm useless, I'm moving to Burnley.
That's another thing that I've had to develop tolerance for. People's inability to constructively criticise.
Yeah.
If you don't like it or there are aspects about it that need changing, tell me.
Yeah.
I will change them. Don't say, oh, thank you for that, and then make 77 changes before it goes to print.
Yeah.
And I get a document, I'm like, that's not what I put.
Yeah.
What was, why didn't you tell me? Because I could have done that for you.
Know. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And next time
I'm going off on another tangent here. Let me tell you another thing. This is going in my reflection time today. Clarke was spiked today.
It's brilliant. We're going here and there, but it's all relevant. It's all relevant. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is the relevance of betting and football. Because that's quite big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know it's something you wanted to mention and talk about. So do you want to tell us a bit about the work you're doing at the moment and how you're...
I'd love to, Angela. That was such a professional segue, mate. Yeah. That was just beautiful.
We've got Ray Winston in a minute going.
So I work at Bet No More now, and we address the gambling risks of gambling harms, not just for the person who gambles, which is my lived experience. I got heavily into gambling when I was trying to self-medicate my depression and all of that, but also for the affected others. The academic research says that for every person who gambles, that there are 6 to 10 other lives impacted by that. And it stands to reason. You think about it. You've got your partner, you got your children, you've got colleagues, people you're borrowing money from, family members. The ripple effects are huge, and there's a real reticence for people to address gambling at the moment. There really is. As organisations, they don't want to talk about it because is this like a tacit admission that we've got a problem?
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not it. We need to start looking at this like we did mental health 20 years ago. It's not, oh, we've got a problem. It's, look, we're going to proactively address this and put preventative measures in place. But betting in football, gambling in football, it's a huge thing.
Why is it such a huge thing?
For me, it's like, because me and my friends are like it. Like, we get to a point where it's like it's hard to watch a football match without having to bet, because also actually you can't forget to bet because it's everywhere. It's all over the advertising board. It's all over the shirts. Half time, bang, there's Ray Winston talking to you. Like, it is everywhere. It's like you can't escape it if it's something you want to do.
It's there because of the money.
Yeah,
it's there because clubs need money, and these betting, these gambling operators, you know, they spend in the UK over £8 billion on advertising last year.
Yeah,
that's how much they can spend on advertising. It's absurd. The opening weekend of the Premier League last season, 3 live matches. There was, I don't know the exact number of gambling messages, but it equated to one every 1.2 seconds.
Wow.
There was a gambling message. And this is to an audience of, 700 million worldwide, all the children. It's normalising, you know, this gambling interaction. Again, we're not anti-gambling. It just needs to be understood that this has a knock-on effect, you know, and... sports betting is huge. The thing about gambling, to my mind, is it can be an enjoyable social activity. You know, people got the races, or you have a night out, blah, blah, blah. A little bit of an acca, make your football interesting. Yeah, okay, all good. But there oftentimes and very easily comes a point where it would be nice to win, and now I need to win.
Yeah.
And once you cross that line, it is incredibly difficult to step back over without seeing gambling as the solution.
Yeah.
When it was the problem that you know, it was the thing that caused the problem. And the thing about it, and what I think is the most important message and thing for us to acknowledge nowadays. In my day, gambling was geographically situated. I had to go to the casino. I had to go to the bookies. I had to go to, you know, the slot machine place. And so it was constrained by time. Whereas now, everyone has the world's casinos on their phone. It's accessible 24/7. And because of that, the gambling operators, they get you in for an acca. They'll get... You know, the biggest growth demographic right now is women aged between 31 and 46.
Oh, really?
It's the biggest growth demographic. And that's because we're all talking about, stop advertising at football and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, stop that. Come join our bingo community. Yeah. Come and join with other people at home, blah, blah, blah. And they package it up as a social thing. They're getting... In fact, there were 2 operators that targeted new stay-at-home mums. I mean, how predatory is that? Yeah. You know, and they get you into a bingo community online where immediately they're trying to funnel you through to scratch cards, slot machines, sports betting. So that's where it's going. And not only that, we've got all these influencers like Drake and stuff like that. You know, they're promoting big, massive gambling bets, but he's using free money that the operators provided. All those who have got massive followers, they might not advertise gambling, but they've got someone playing gambling in the background of all their posts and stuff. Yeah, might be crypto and Bitcoin and stuff. You know, it's a market that is predatory, and it's targeting our young people by making gambling fun, social, and what all the famous people do. And it's causing problems, mate. It's causing huge problems, not just financially for people, but huge intersectionalities with things like domestic violence, with children in poverty. You know, all of these aspects, we you know, crime and criminality, where we're looking at the outcome, but we're not addressing the reason that's put these people in those scenarios.
So do we need legislation to come in and say, a bit like, you know, when they stopped advertising cigarettes, right? Do we need that sort of legislation to say, okay, no longer able to advertise at the football? Or?
It's moving to a public health model. It's moving that way. So, you know, our GPs are starting to have to ask about gambling behaviours when people present with anxiety and depression. Great step forward. But the public health model is you address that advertising, you make the item less accessible, less visible, you screen for it earlier, but most importantly, it goes on the curriculum. We educate about it. You know, and the education aspect is so important because we don't know what it's like to be a young person today. You know, we haven't grown up where our community is here. You know, when I had to go and knock on doors to play with people, and if I didn't, I went home, and the input I had was mum and dad and 4 channels on the telly. Our young people now have the world's input. So they do find multiple communities, but they're not physical, but they're probably far more influential. You know, so we've got to know what we can't know. We've got to hear what it's like to be a young person today. What does a solution look like for you? You know, when is this being introduced to you? What would make you engage with it? What do you know about it? How can we support you in your engagement with it? Because what we've brought out, the guys of my age and older, is an online safety bill that requires age verification. Oh, what do you do? Our young people are already using VPNs to bypass age verification just for their social content. They've already got the way to get around what we think's the solution for gambling. So let's talk to them. Let's devise something for what's coming down the line. And at the same time, we can spread the message for, you know, our generation and older, that there's something that can be done about it.
You've mentioned education a lot. And obviously, we work with hundreds of thousands of young children, of young people, and we just want to be positive. Like, we just want to be positive and fun. But there is definitely, like, you're totally right in, like, the reform in education, because if you look at, like, for example, alcohol, like, I remember being a young person, young people always, you'd meet at a park and you drink on a park bench, X, Y, and Z, or whatever. Whatever it was, and probably worse in your day, Clark. I'm a bit younger and X, Y, and Z, but I think that's coming out. That's like the percentage of young people that drink now is so much lower. And ultimately, if we've obviously educated the what alcohol, how poor it is for the body, how poor it is X, Y, and Z, and people are now buying into wanting to live more healthy. It all comes back to education, doesn't it? And you mentioned, like, was it generational conditioning?
Yes,
that's ultimately what it is, isn't it? It's my granddad used to walk down to the shops with me. I would sit on the bench, he would have a bet on the horses, he'd buy me a chocolate bar and I'd wait for him to come back outside. So when I was 18, what's the first thing I'd done? I went straight to a William Hill and I put an Aki on, because I'm 18 now, I can do an Aki. That's what my granddad done. It is just generational, isn't it? It's seeing it in front of you and then basically mirroring. That's your conditioning, you're going to mirror that behaviour now.
That is the conditioning, unless we are conscious and deliberate about changing it. You know, and what you've just said then about that change in drinking behaviour. I mean, when I mention about going on the park and playing 2 drag drop with a bottle of Merrydown cider, or, you know, Mad Dog 2020, I can see the young people nowadays like that. You know, and my kids, I'm a granddad now, you know, became a granddad 6 weeks ago.
Congrats.
My eldest gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, so proud of them both and all my kids. 27, 18, 15, 8 and 5. I've got 5 kids. Good spread. It's a buffet. It's a good buffet. But the changes in approaches from the 26-year-old to 18 and 15-year-old are huge. But even more so, the changes from my behaviours as a young man to me eldest, and then to the middle mate, I'm prehistoric. You know what my son considers wholesome entertainment now. He's, you know, passed his test and he's getting out and about. I'm like, what even are you, son? What even is this? Like, oh yeah, we could go do this. I'm like, really? For fun? Well, I love it. I absolutely love it. You know, that shows that progression in thinking, and that the understanding nowadays of more healthier things, you know, more constructive things, productive things. And we can do more in the areas that we are now uncomfortable with. They're going to be the greatest areas of change I see for my 8 and 5-year-old, because we're starting to, you know, look into Pandora's box now. So gambling, you know, Times Rich list, 4 gambling operator owners rocketed to the top. You know, the top taxpayers, 6 of them in the top 10.
Is there a link with gambling and mental health and men's suicide?
Of course there is,
and
mate.
is there, like...
There is a huge correlation, especially in cases of what we'd call spontaneous suicidal act, you know, because when someone's just gone on a binge, you know, and absolutely done themselves in, the overwhelming that it can be catastrophic. Now in coroner's reports, they are starting to include gambling as a factor for suicide. And we're starting to tiptoe into that territory of looking at it, and we can only look at it in its entirety if we start to get comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
All of the data at the minute, it's self-report, it's self-disclosure. If I am, or when I was gambling in a detrimental way, if you'd have given me a survey and said, "Oh, are you spending more than you can afford?" I'm like, no. It was the way that I got to carry on gambling. Yeah. And I ended up getting payday loans and borrowing money from this person. I bought the same telly about 18 times because I pawned it into cash converters like every 2 weeks, and then going in 2 weeks. Oh, utterly ridiculous. This is while I'm a professional footballer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Is there a correlation between professional footballers and just their schedule? So it's like training 2 hours, 3 hours, and you've got all this time available where you have to fill with something. Is that
there are factors?
Yeah.
The boredom is one. Belonging. Wanting to be part of the group. Especially poker came through when I was playing, so that was a big thing. Cards at the back of the bus and all that. And then as I was leaving, casinos became fashionable. Just for a night out and a meal and stuff. So there are trends. There are underlying strands of reasons why an individual might get involved, but there's just not a single strand reason. What we're seeing nowadays in cost of living crisis and all that is that there's a huge rise in people who aren't gambling for that life-changing win. They're gambling for 50 quid to pay the phone bill at the end of the week. And it's becoming that. It's actually for a sustainable living. And they're the times that we're in. And if you are in that trap where, forget about hearing, ex-footballer spent £100,000. Oh, that's shocking. That's relative to what they earn. This guy losing 100 grand, which is a third of a week's wages, that's the equivalent to a person who's, say, drawing in benefits, or a student losing 50 quid. Because it's more than they can afford. And that's what we've got to be conscious of. It's not the amount, it's why you're doing it, the frequency you're doing it, and how quick you cross over that line to now I need to win.
You mentioned earlier about wanting to be well. I've always said my goal is to be happy, so I need to change my I need to change my language, don't I? And I've also always said I'm on this planet to make my wife happy, which I need to start making myself. I need to change my language today, which is good though. It's brilliant. I love these conversations because it's
just
good for learning.
Before you go to that question, I'm not going to say we had ructions, but it took a long time. I went into psych hospital like 4 or 5 times, and the last time when I came out, it was with the first time that I was like, right, I am going to get well. And I'd learned that concept that I'm responsible for my own happiness and wellness. So like I came out with my wife and I'm like, I'm not responsible for your happiness. And it was brutal. Oh my God. So now with a bit more maturity, I can say I'm not responsible for my wife's happiness, but I do endeavour to make her happy. You know, because that's what I want to do. But I'm not responsible for it. That's on you. What do you mean I'm away for your birthday?
So you mentioned wellness, and you broke it down in regards to like what you could do to and go really granular, understand the things that make you well. For anyone struggling today who feels unwell, or what would be like the advice for them in that situation? Someone who's lived and breathed feeling like that.
I always say that like you don't have to be like me. You don't have to tell everyone. But it's imperative that you tell someone, and you tell the right someone at the right time. Excuse me. What we can often fall into the trap of is telling a partner or telling a friend. I would say don't. You know, those people, they're invested in your happiness. So the likelihood is, especially if it's a partner, the likelihood is they'll be like, well, what's wrong? You know, well, what's wrong with our relationship? What have I done? Or you know, oh, let me do this, that, or the other. Or friends are usually, they'll distract or minimise. Oh, don't worry, Billy, at least you're not like Angelo.
Yeah.
You know, oh, don't worry, mate, let's go and have a pint. We'll go and watch football. Now, in both of those scenarios, someone's engaged with you, but they haven't actually done anything about what you've brought to them.
Yeah.
You know, we have a whole sector of people who are trained and qualified and are being paid to prioritise your wellness. Go to those people. They're impartial. You know, they're not going to give you an emotional response. They're not going to play any kind of blame game or judgment.
Yeah.
They're going to actively inquire as to how they can underpin your wellness, or at least get you on the road back. So that would be my first suggestion. My second suggestion is, if you do have someone who you heavily rely on, you know, say you do, oh, I've got Angela, I've got Billy, that's excellent. What if Billy's not available? You know, what if it's about Billy? You know, what do you do then? So what I always encourage is for us to develop a council of people around us. And what I had my dad, my mum, my older brother, my best friend, my wife, my eldest daughter, and my therapist. And I knew that between those 7 people, I always had someone to talk to about anything that came across my path. And that meant that if it was something, you know, going on with my wife, I will ask my dad for his counsel, and I'll ask my mum for their counsel. If it's something I don't know how to articulate, I might take it to my therapist first and say, you know, what about this? And then I can bring it to my wife. So get a council of people around you, so you're never without.
Yeah.
And then you can also, you know, apply someone with their wisdom aligned to what you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, love it, Clark. Really enjoyed the chat. Like, it's been really insightful, really helpful, and you are definitely impacting thousands of people, definitely men, like young men. You definitely impacted me 100%, and I think you should be really empowered by that. Like,
I'm proud,
proud, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
you,
because
thank you.
definitely impacted my life, definitely helped me with some struggles that I was dealing with and obstacles that I had. So just, big thank you to you. I can't finish without asking, because I have to ask, because we haven't really spoke anything about football and stuff like that. What is it like playing at Wembley? How unbelievable is that?
Mate. Football has given me some of the most phenomenal memories. It really has. Right down to my debut away at Wrexham, the
old
racecourse
Wrexham
ground, on a wet, rainy Tuesday night, wooden rickety stands. It was horrendous. I mean, I was 17, 10 stone wet through, trying to be a centre half, playing against these hairy, backsided men. Honestly, there are 22 Angelos out there. They kicked lumps out of me. 2-0 down at half time. Both goals my fault. Like, Gaffer, what do I do? He says, don't worry, son, you can't be any worse in the second half. We won the game 4-3. Magical moment. And then my home debut at Bloomfield Road. I score a 91st minute winner. And that's just awesome. You know, that they are core footballing memories, the pair of them. But then there comes a point where it stops becoming your dream because you're living it. And it becomes your job. You know, so these wonderful moments are actually now, they turn into the consequential every day. And things change then. So your Saturday, Tuesday, it might be against X or Y or Z, but you're not really thinking about that. I'm thinking about, am I going to play? How many games have I played? Have I got a bonus coming in? Am I going to be able to afford the car payment? You know, things like that. And then you get certain games. A trigger. Millennium Stadium, playoff final with QPR, played Cardiff in Cardiff and got beat. Oh, I mean, that was horrendous. Because we played in the most beautiful kit. It was a one-off, all-white kit, and I loved it. And then we got beat, so I had to burn it. And you know, they never used that kit again, and it's horrendous because it was gorgeous. Playoff final for Burnley against Sheffield United, refurbished Wembley Stadium, 90,000 people, mate. And I was man of the match.
Unreal.
Wow.
Walked out there and the pyrotechnics went off, and I melted. Honestly, it was so hot. And I was just like, don't need that right now. But then let me tell you, from that moment, I can't remember a thing until the final whistle. Maybe 2 moments in the game I can remember. And apparently it was my best performance in a Burnley shirt, man of the match. We're going to the Premier League, mate.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Another moment I remember, with Burnley, we beat Man United at Old Trafford. They were reigning champions at the time, which is awesome. In fact, I keep shuffling because I've still got Wayne Rooney in my back pocket.
Brilliant.
Down, lads. Well, the one game that I do truly remember is at Anfield. We played Liverpool away, and I think that was my best game in a Burnley shirt against Fernando Torres. I just old-manned him. I beat this kid up for 90 minutes. We lost 4-0. Yossi Benayoun got hat-trick, and I got 3 out of 10.
In the paper.
It was my best game. It was
my
best game ever, to the point where Fernando Torres gave me a hug afterwards, and he asked for my shirt, and I was like, yeah, mate, yeah, that was decent.
Love it. Clark, what a life! What a life! Lucky you got Wayne Rooney in the pocket, because all the names ain't dropping out. Torres, Benayoun, all coming out. But what a life! Really, honestly, super inspirational. Thank you so much as well for coming down from Newcastle and talking to us too. We really appreciate it. Honestly, it means the world to us. And really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for today.
It's a pleasure. Been a great conversation, fellas. Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.